so many different things are pressing at you and pulling at you, and just it never seems to stop. One minute you're peaceful and everything's going quiet, and the next minute your daughter's calling saying, I'm dropping the kids off. Didn't ask you what you had planned, didn't ask you what you want to do or anything. Would you go tilt the camera back? Do you know how to do it? If you just raise it up, it should be okay. And at that moment, that's when you say, fill me up, Lord, because I don't have a clue how I'm going to handle this. But he's faithful and he's just, and he will fill you up. Lower, 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 a little lower, center, a little higher, stop. Perfect. You got it. Perfect. We'll make a camera person out of you yet. Heavenly Father, we just thank you right now for your mercies. We thank you for your grace, and we thank you for your word. We ask you now to open our hearts and open our minds. Lord, hide me behind your cross that I may be able to do what you have called us to do, and been able to say something that would touch the hearts and the minds. Lord, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen. As I was working on the theme for today, everybody has a prayer closet. I've said many times my prayer closet has a motor and 4 wheels. And I was working on, I'm saying, Lord, the sister came in here last Sunday and preached the house down. What do you want me to do? He said, I want you to do what I told you to do. Okay, gotcha. So I said, Lord, give me a topic, because right now you understand where my heart is. You know what I've been going through. You know the struggles and the situations. You know exactly what I've been praying for and praying to you about, and what I've been saying and what I believe you've been saying back to me. What is it that you want me to do? And he said, remember when you were a child, you used to play a game. And I said, but Lord, he said, not that game. He said, you used to play a game with all the kids in the neighborhood. And I said, Lord, he said, no, not that game. I said, what game are you talking about? Because I'm going to get in trouble here if I just keep trying to guess. He said, you used to play follow the leader. And I thought to myself, yeah. And it was a big honor to be the leader. That means that you get the whole neighborhood kids and you're running around with all of the neighborhood kids, and you're jumping over fences and you're crawling through things and you're climbing things and climbing up trees and hiding under cars and going around bushes, but you're all doing it. Follow the leader. I'm going to have you do the wide. It's the button across the top on this side. It's like a rocker switch. On the other side. Yes, at the very top. It's a rocker switch. Yep. Other way. There you go. Who or what is this? Somehow. Okay. not going to bother me today, Satan. Not going to happen. And he used to say, we just used to play the game called Follow the Leader. And I said, why is this relevant today? He said, well, if you think about it, go back to Matthew. So if we look at the book of Matthew, the 4th chapter. And Jesus, walking by the Son of Galilee, saw 2 brethren, Simon called Peter and Andrew his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishers. The first thing that comes to mind when you read this is that Jesus calls you where you are, which means that he doesn't call a plumber to fish. He doesn't call a carpenter to paint. He doesn't call, you see what I'm going with this? Where you are is where he calls you. Now, the other thing that we get from this, we understand from this, is that the fishers were not the nicest of people. If you've ever spent any time on a dock or near a dock, 2 things to be immediately apparent. One is it's very smelly. Docks stink. I didn't realize how bad until I had some service calls down on the dock, and I had to go down to the dock. I didn't realize how bad. Docks stink. Which makes perfect sense because of all the fish and everything going on down there. Well, I never thought of it that way. So the people who work down there smell like the docks. And the people who work down there act like the docks. They swear, they cuss. They are the roughest of rough. It doesn't mean that they're all men, because there are women down there too, and they are equally as rough and just as nasty as the men. Been down there? Know it, what I'm talking about. This is the truth. So Jesus goes to the roughest of the rough, the people which, as important as fish was, as important a commerce as it was, they still got no respect for doing it. And they were looked down upon in society. And we know this to be the case because if you study anything about history, there was always a class system. And even today, there's a class system. I talked about this before. People look down at garbage men. And I confess, I was one of them. I looked down at garbage men until I found out what they got paid. That's why they never cared if you called them a name. Garbage men were always well paid. Back when I was trying to eke out $15 an hour, these dudes were getting 20 and 25. And I think I got somewhat of a brain. I should have been out there picking the trash cans up and throwing them in. That's good money. $25 an hour is $50,000 a year. That's good money. But what I'm saying is that God called through Jesus the dirtiest, the slime, the degradation of society. He did not go to the temples. He didn't go to the teachers. He didn't go to the learning establishments and get the smartest and brightest and fastest, the young up-and-comers. He got the people that were rejected by society. And when he called them, they did not believe it. He said unto them, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. The beauty of this whole concept is that what God is saying to these people and what he says to us is whatever you do, wherever you're gifted, if you follow me, I will complete your training. You see, this is the interesting part of what's going on. You think that you're just washing kids for your daughter. No, you are training them in what a good Christian woman does. You're training them. You're showing an example of how a good Christian mother mothers not just her daughter, but her kids' kids. You see what I mean? He didn't call you to hang a TV and put a TV on. He called you to mother, and you're doing it well. You see, this is the interesting part. Sometimes when people tell me, Pastor, I just don't hear the voice of the Lord. Well, gee, maybe you're not listening. Because what skill do you have? That's the skill he called. Where are you in life? That's where he called you. Everybody from the Old Testament to the New Testament, everybody was called where they were and who they were. He did not call these fishers and say, come, I'll make you painters of men. Come, I'll make you plumbers. Come, I'll make you carpenters. He said, I will make you fishers of men, meaning that I will put in you my spirit so that when you know how to go out, because I'm not a fisher, but I have done this in the past. I'm not a fish person, but I have gone out with fishers. And it's not, you just don't get in the boat and you go out. You got to prepare. You have to have a reel. And then depending on the type of fish you're going after, you have to have a lure for those fish, which is something weird because I grew up watching TV and all you did was drop a worm on a hook and put it in the water. And fishermen laugh at you if you think that. Because if you're going after bass, you have to use a certain type of this. If you're going after catfish, this. Every fish has a particular lure that it responds to. See, y'all miss that. Every fish has the particular lure that it responds to. That means everybody in your life has a particular way that they will respond to you if you reach out to them. You want to hang out with me? Ask me to go to the movies. I'm there. Want to hang out with you, Deacon Horn? Let's go to dinner. You're there. I have no idea what yours is yet. I'm working on it. You want to help me here? Nope, you'll keep me fishing. You see what I'm saying is that everybody has a particular thing that they can be reached out with. So what Jesus is telling these two people is, if you follow me, I am going to complete your training. I'm going to show you how to use your natural God-given talent of going out into the ocean where you're surrounded by nothing but water, but underneath that water is what you're looking for. So when we go out into society, we're surrounded by all these people. But if we know how to fish, we learn how to cast our lines. Some people will be drawn by the phenomenal, the strong. Some people will be drawn by the intellectual. Some people will be drawn by the dance moves. Some people will be drawn by the hoop and the holler. Amen. Thank you, Jesus. Some people will be drawn by the exegesis and the eisegesis and how this verse corresponds with Luke chapter 3 and 11, and where it's explained also in John. Some people will be drawn by the intellectual. The point of the matter is, everybody has something that will draw them, and what we need to do is go out and start fishing. So you're wondering to me, how did I go from follow the leader to fishing? I'll get there. I'll make it make sense. I promise you. And straightway they left their nets and followed him. If you think about it, the people who seem to not have anything on the ball, who seem to be the worst part of society, the people who seem to be the lowest of the low, always seem to be the ones that understand true opportunity when it comes their way. Because if the person had been an intellectual, he would have started questioning. Well, Jesus, you want me to follow you? Exactly what does this entail? What are my duties? What will I have to do? And Jesus would have to look at him and go, well, you would have to deny yourself. You would have to follow me. You would have to die. And then the person would decide based on those criteria that maybe I don't want to follow you. I'm happy right where I am. I'm making good money. My wife is loving and faithful as far as I know, although I do have some questions. I've got good friends, so I think, although I've never called one of them at 3 o'clock in the morning with a flat tire. That's when you find out. Okay. Huh? There you go. Call AAA. That's what you pay them for. Which reminds me, I got a note from a letter from them yesterday, Saturday, that said this is my last opportunity. I got to repay, I got to renew, which I really need to do. So the answer to what I'm trying to say is that the so-called low part of society had no problem following Jesus when he called them. And they did not ask for an explanation. They didn't ask for what the compensation would be. They didn't want to submit their resume. They just left their nets and followed him. We don't do that today, do we? Yeah, we don't do that today. Nope, 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 nope. We want to check everything out. We want to see what's going on this way and that way. We want to understand. We want to know. We want to be sure. And here's the key. We can be sure because Christ was very clear in what his mission was. He was very clear when he started preaching. He was very clear in what he did. And going on from there, he saw two other brethren, James the son of Zebedee and John his brother, in a boat with Zebedee their father, mending their nets, and he called them. And immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. Once again, we have an example of what is important. We have to be willing to leave that which is familiar, that which is comfortable, that which we know. I understand what's going on because these guys are all fishermen, and half of the job of fishing is mending your nets. Because what you do is you take a big net, you cast it out into the water, the net sinks down, and then you pull the net back and fish get caught in it. So there's always opportunity for the net to tear, for it to break, for things to get through. So if you don't fix the net, then things get through, fish get through, and it's not worth casting the net. When we are out there, we have to be sure that our net is solid, which means we don't just start casting out half-baked concepts. When we start talking, we need to understand what it is we're talking about. If I get into a conversation with somebody when I don't know what they're talking about, I will tell them, wow, I didn't know anything about that. You have educated me. I don't try to act like I know everything, because I don't. Everybody who knows me knows that. And now you've heard me say it out loud on YouTube and internet and the whole bit. I don't know everything. So when you're out there casting your net, stick with what you know and find the common ground. Just because I'm not a sports person doesn't mean I don't listen to and can talk a little bit about sports. Read a paper. Watch the sports on TV. I have had very long conversations with people who are convinced I'm the greatest sports person in the world because I've asked them one question: what do you think about? That's all I have to ask them. Once I ask them what they think about, they will tell me the whole bit, and they will think I'm the smart one. The familiar. The familiar. They left the boat. You see, the boat is the vehicle. It's what they've always done. I see this as plain as a nose on my face. From the time they were born and could walk and were weaned, they were in that boat with their father. Where's Daddy? Daddy's on the boat. That's where you are. From the time I met my father, I was in the car with him. Wherever he was going, if I could get it, as long as I could be in that car, I was in that car. So it's no surprise I started driving when I was 10 years old. It's no surprise I started driving for him as his chauffeur at 14 with no driver's license. Not a one. But the statute of limitation has run out, so what, Ohio? You can't touch this. Dun, 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 dun. So they were in the boat with their father. Father is not just the man, he is security. He is what they know. He is their protector. He is going to die for them. He is also the disciplinarian. He keeps them in line. He teaches them. He's a trainer. He's an educator. He is their guide. This is one of the reasons why fathers are so necessary today, because these young people, these young men need to be guided. They need to be taught. I had a young man in my car yesterday who cried for it would have to be about a half hour, because when he left the store with his parents, he was crying. When he got in the car, he was crying. When I drove him to their home, which was about 18, 20 minutes away, he was still crying. He's 8 years old. This dude cried for at least a half hour. The parents apologized. I'm sorry, he's crying. It's okay. Get used to it, was all I said. Get used to it. Because if at 8 years old you have not taught this kid how to cry, he's going to be crying all his life. Cry for a half hour over. Look, I have a hard time with this concept because I was not allowed to cry. You start crying even when they're whooping you. Don't cry. Well, then what are you hitting me for? Yeah. You're the one, yeah. They're telling not to cry. Because if you cry, then they say what? If you don't stop crying, I'll give you something to cry for. That's what you were doing in the first place. So get used to the fact that this kid is crying. He's going to be crying the next 10 years of his life until at some point, somewhere, somebody teaches him how to not cry. And at 8 years old, what could it be? He couldn't have been in real pain. They'd take him to a hospital. It had to be he was denied something he wanted. It had to be that. Either he had a toy or didn't want to leave or whatever it was, he didn't get his way, so he started crying. A father doesn't allow that. Not a true father. Not a father from my era. Let me say that. These new fathers, they allow it. But in my era, no. We're not allowed. Not even thought about. If I was crying for a half hour, it means I was getting whooped for a half hour. It was a 1-to-1 proportion right there. You want to cry, you get whooped. You get whooped, you get a cry. It's equal. And shut up as soon as the whooping is over. Shut up while it's going on. What's something to cry for? Whap, yeah. Exactly right. I give you something to cry for. So this significance is when they get out of the boat and they leave their father and they stop doing that which is comfortable, that which they know, that which they are familiar with, and they leave the only authoritative figure that they know. Why? Because Christ is a greater authority. He's going to give them more and better, and they don't know that. All they know is that he has said, follow me. And remember, he spoke with authority. He spoke with the Spirit. They look, and these are men who are skilled and practiced at knowing nonsense. Because that streetwise is real. So if you were on the fisher boat, you know every con. You know every game, you know everything because that you know on the hard way because they were all played on you when you started going down there. So you learn real quick. So when Christ says, follow me, he is saying to them, leave that which is familiar for something that is greater. And you're saying to me, well, where are you going with this? I'm still not quite getting it. Why follow me? In Star Trek, Captain Kirk, in the movies, I think it was 3. Nobody, this was one of the biggest secrets. Nobody ever saw this coming. The Enterprise is destroyed. Do you remember that one? The Enterprise is destroyed. And Captain Kirk is standing on the bridge after they've set what happens is the ship is commandeered by the Klingons, and the only way to survive is they beam themselves off, and they now set a destruct sequence, which is going, it was 2, the Wrath of Khan. It was 2, the Wrath of Khan. And they set a destruct sequence that is going to destroy the Enterprise. And I never in life saw that coming. I've been watching Star Trek all my life. I've been watching all the movies, everything. I never saw the fact that they would destroy the Enterprise. And standing on the bridge, Captain Kirk says, what have I done? Because it's his authorization that destroys the Enterprise. And as a leader, you're going to be in situations where you have to look and you say, what have I done? And this church knows this more than any other that I know of. What is going on? It seems like there's no plan. It seems like there's no direction. There's no anything. And trust me when I tell you there is a plan. There is direction. God knows what he's doing. But you still have to ask that question. What have I done? And the answer comes beautifully. He says, you've done what you've always done. You've created a space for life. You've saved life. And you've created a space for change and growth. And as a leader, you sometimes have to do things that you may not agree with, but you do them for the greater good. You sometimes have to do things that you're not comfortable with, that you don't even understand, but you do them for the greater good, because you're doing what you need to do to survive. And never mind what you need to do to survive. As a leader, you're doing what your followers need to do, to see you do, so that they can survive. So Captain Kirk destroys the Enterprise. And you think all hope is lost. And you think nothing could ever come out of this. You don't quite know what's going to happen. As a matter of fact, that's the episode where they take off in the Klingon ship. Because they've destroyed the Klingons that beam to their ship, they beam to the Klingon ship, and they take off in the Klingon ship while the Enterprise is crashing and burning. God knows what he's doing here. He understands, and as a leader, we have to understand that we are following him. Follow the leader is not just a kid's game anymore. It is a game to be played by adults, and understand that Jesus Christ is the leader. And following him is not going to be as easy as running and jumping off the stairs and climbing over the bushes and crawling under the porch and coming out. It's not going to be as easy as that, but it's going to be just as much fun. Because, yeah, you'll get dirty and you'll get slimy and you'll tear your clothes up and all that stuff, but that's part of the fun. When we go out and we start talking to the people and reaching out to the people and casting our net, we're going to get a little slimy. Some people will have alcohol on their breath. Some people will have BO. We're going to meet people that have issues. But that's part of the fun. Because Jesus Christ never tested anybody until after they were called. Everybody came to him as they were. So we must go to the people as they are. He never judged anybody by what he saw. He judged them when he called them, but not before. And even when he called them, his judgment was held back for God alone, because he called 12 people. Out of those 12 people, we had fishers, we had religious people, we had bankers or tax collectors. We had every societal occupation represented, and only out of all of that did one of them betray him. But the truth of the matter is that they all betrayed him at some point of their ministry. Every one of his disciples walked away from him at some point of the ministry, but 11 of them came back. And the 12th one could have come back. If he had truly believed, he could have come back. But he never saw the big picture. When he was caught in his sin, when he was caught in his failure, rather than understand who he had been following all that period of time, he chose to kill himself. His sin wasn't any greater than Peter's. Seriously. If you look at it properly, actually his sin was less, because he betrayed Christ once. Peter betrayed him 3 times. So 3-1. So Judas could have in fact come back if he'd understood, if he'd paid any attention to who he was following. He would have recognized that no one sin is ever, no one failure is ever permanent unless you make it so. Because we find out in the next episode, after they have a thing with the Klingon ship and they go save the whales, you find that they save the planet and they get a new ship. And Scotty says, Captain, we're home. And it is the Enterprise. They built another Enterprise and put a big O2 on it. Follow the leader. Jesus Christ is our leader. Follow me as I follow him. It's what I asked you before. I'll ask you that again. As long as I'm following Christ, please follow me. God has the plan. We will survive, we will prosper, and we will continue to go on, and we will become that which God has set out for us to become. If we just follow the leader. Amen.
And as we follow the leader, we want to continue to pray for New Bethel Baptist Church. We want to continue to pray for the growth of the deacon board. We want to continue to pray for a youth ministry leader. We want to continue to pray for a development of a missions board. We want to continue to pray for a musician and a choir director. We want to continue to pray for the restructure of the New Bethel Baptist Church choir. We want to pray for an usher and an usher board chairperson. We want to pray for Sunday school teachers. We have one that is magnanimous, but we need at least one or two more. We want to pray for the mayor of Framingham. She needs much, much, much prayer. We want to pray for the sick and the shut-in. We want to pray for those who are hungry, homeless. We want to pray for President Trump and his family. We want to pray for the police all over the world. And we want to continue to pray for pastors, not just the pastor of New Bethel, but all pastors. There's a thing called clergy burnout. And we want to pray that, the Lord will keep pastors strong in these very difficult times. So let us now go to the throne of grace. Let us continue. We'll pray for Sister Wendy as she's been traveling. We're going to pray for Deacon James Horn as he has a procedure on tomorrow and he has to prepare today. And we want to pray for those that just could not be here today. And Deacon Cole, let us pray.